The alarm on your dosimeter beeps before you even reach the inner door. You've been briefed, suited, taped, and scanned. You pass through 4 separate security checkpoints, answered a radiation safety exam from memory, and signed a document acknowledging, in plain language, what invisible force you are about to walk into. The air smells like nothing. That's the terrifying part. There is no smell. No color. No sound. Radiation, enough to kill a person outright in sustained doses, gives you absolutely no warning. You have one job: crawl into the steel guts of a nuclear reactor, inspect a weld the size of your thumb, and get back out before the dosimeter screams at you again. Welcome to the most invisible, most misunderstood, and most precisely dangerous job on the planet. Every 18 to 24 months, the heart of a nuclear power plant stops beating. The reactor shuts down, the fuel rods go quiet, and what happens next looks nothing like what you'd imagine from the outside. There is no dramatic silence or glowing countdown. Instead, something stranger happens. Thousands of workers descend on the plant. For a typical refueling outage at a plant like Arizona's Palo Verde generating station, the largest nuclear power producer in the United States, the roughly 2,000 full-time employees are joined by an additional 800 to 1,000 contractors. They flood in from across the country: pipe fitters, specialized welders, industrial X-ray experts, radiation protection technicians. They are the circuit riders of the nuclear world, moving from plant to plant during the spring and fall refueling season, the months when electricity demand dips enough to afford a brief pause. The pause, however, is anything but restful. An average outage involves approximately 9,000 separate work activities. That's 343 tasks completed every single day. Some of these tasks happen in the parking lot, in turbine halls, in electrical rooms. But some of them, the ones that require a different category of human courage, happen inside the containment building, inside the reactor vessel itself. Before any worker enters what is called the radiologically controlled area, they undergo a layering ritual that takes longer than most people spend getting dressed in a week. First comes the inner clothing layer, a full cotton coverall. Then a second layer of protective coveralls over that. Then rubber-soled shoe covers, taped at the ankle. Rubber gloves, then cotton gloves over those. A full-face respirator, or in higher dose zones, a supplied air-breathing apparatus. Essentially a self-contained air system, like a diver's tank, because the air itself inside some zones may carry microscopic radioactive particles. Then comes the dosimeter. The dosimeter is the most important object a nuclear worker carries, small enough to clip to your belt. This electronic device tracks radiation exposure in real time, every second. It has a hard limit programmed into it, a personal radiation budget for the day. When the budget runs out, the alarm sounds. You leave, immediately. No exceptions. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission sets the federal annual exposure limit for nuclear workers at 5,000 milliroom per year. Many utilities enforce internal limits far below that. Duke Energy, for example, caps its workers at 2,000 milliroom annually. To put that in perspective, the average American absorbs 620 milliroom per year, simply by existing, breathing radon, eating food, flying occasionally, getting medical scans. A nuclear worker's entire permitted annual occupational dose, across a full year of working inside one of the most radioactive environments humans have built, is roughly 3 times that background level. The safety margins, in other words, are engineered to be almost paranoid in their caution. But almost paranoid doesn't mean comfortable. Inside the containment building, time is not an abstraction. It is a physical resource being spent, whether you move or not. Every second you stand in a high radiation zone, invisible energy passes through your body, through your skin, your organs, your DNA. It doesn't matter that you can't feel it. It's happening. The major source of radiation exposure during reactor maintenance comes from cobalt-60, a byproduct that deposits itself inside the piping systems of the reactor's coolant loop. Cobalt-60 emits 2 high-energy gamma rays with every single radioactive decay, and it has a half-life of 5.3 years, meaning it will be radiating at roughly half its current intensity in 2030 and half again in 2035. Workers aren't just working near it. In some jobs, They are inches from it, repairing the very pipes it lives inside. The three fundamental rules of radiation protection, time, distance, and shielding, govern every single movement inside the plant. Minimize the time you spend in the field. Maximize your distance from the source whenever possible. Put lead, concrete, or water between you and the radiation when you can. Moving from one side of a pump to the other, for instance, can cut a worker's dose rate from 3 mg per hour down to 0.3 mg per hour, a tenfold reduction simply by repositioning your body by a few feet. This is why nuclear workers practice their tasks obsessively before performing them. Special mock-ups, physical replicas of valves, pumps, and reactor components, are built in low radiation areas where workers rehearse exact sequences of movements. They do this not for training in the traditional sense, but for speed. Every second of fumbling inside the real reactor is a second of absorbed radiation. You don't get to pause and think, you execute. When the reactor vessel head is removed, a steel dome weighing 154,000 pounds, lifted by a precision crane, the water above the core turns a ghostly electric blue. This is Cherenkov radiation, caused by subatomic particles moving faster than light travels through water. It is genuinely beautiful in the way that many dangerous things are. Workers standing on the refueling bridge above the open reactor core look down at something most humans never see, the raw, glowing heart of atomic power. The fuel assemblies are moved using a crane-like device that ensures the rods never leave the water, because the moment they do, there is nothing between their radiation and any nearby human being. About 1/3 of the fuel is swapped out during a typical refueling. The removed assemblies are transferred to a spent fuel pool, where they will remain submerged and slowly cooling for years. Meanwhile, other workers are elsewhere in the containment performing tasks that have nothing to do with fuel. Welders are repairing cracks in pipes that have been under enormous heat and pressure for 18 months. Electricians are testing motor-operated valves in conditions that no ordinary industrial electrician would recognize. Inspectors are running ultrasonic equipment along the seams of the steel containment liner, searching for signs of corrosion invisible to the naked eye, because a hole the size of a fingertip in the wrong place is not a maintenance issue. It is a catastrophic failure mode. Here is what the data tells us about this work. In 2022, 58% of monitored individuals at U.S. commercial nuclear reactors did not receive any measurable radiation dose at all, a testament to how aggressively the industry manages exposure through planning, robotics, and remote tooling. None received a dose above 3,000 mg. The average nuclear worker receives approximately 150 mg of occupational exposure per year, less than what you absorb from a handful of chest X-rays. Automated tools have transformed parts of the inspection process. Remote robotic cameras called Hawkeye HD now perform over 97% of in-vessel visual inspections at boiling water reactors, without requiring a human to be present at all, reducing radiation exposure by more than 5-fold compared to manual methods. Where machines can go, they go. The human bangs are sent in only when the machines cannot do what the job requires. When a weld needs a trained eye, when a component needs a human hand, when the diagnosis requires something no algorithm has yet learned to feel. Ask a nuclear technician why they do this work, and the answer almost universally isn't money. The job pays well. Specialized outage workers can command exceptional contracts. But that's not the answer they reach for first. They talk about precision, about the trust placed in them by the utility, the regulators, the millions of people whose lights stay on, because the reactor comes back online. They talk about a kind of clarity that most jobs don't offer. In here, the stakes are obvious. There are no abstract metrics, no vague KPIs. The reactor either comes back safely or it doesn't. The outage lasts an average of 30 days. Then the 154,000-pound dome goes back on. The bolts are torqued to specification. The water chemistry is verified. The control rods are tested, and the fission reaction resumes. The workers pack up their dosimeters and drive to the next plant on the circuit. The containment building seals behind them, and 620 mg goes back to being just the background hum of an ordinary life. Could you walk into a nuclear reactor? Drop your answer below. Like and subscribe. We find the jobs, the world forgot to be afraid of.